Hello and welcome. Let's begin with a bow. Thank you for joining me today. We are going to be discussing a little bit about the three prajnas and a little bit about contemplative theory. One way of considering this is why what we do here at Naropa is a little bit different than other education systems. I often think of my time at Naropa as a time of unlearning some of the history and trauma that I had in the school system, and learning a new way of actually integrating, experiencing, and making sense of information. So we're going to talk a little bit today about a way of learning. We often call this the three prajnas. Let's start with the word contemplative. Contemplative. Mindfulness-based contemplative program. It's not mindfulness inspired, it's mindfulness based. So really based in many of the principles of mindfulness. Contemplative is a Latin word. The roots are Latin, contemplum. And this means a space for observation. Also might be considered a temple, space to really observe. And what exactly are we observing? We're really starting to observe beyond the traditional ways that we know or see something. This often has to do with tapping into some of the unknown or sub-perceptual aspects of our experience. Sometimes it means grappling with the paradoxes, two truths being true at the same time, that might feel very different or be seemingly opposed. It also has to do with a knowing or a sensing beyond the conceptual mind, beyond just what we think or we cognitively know. Another way of knowing, beyond, another way. This can relate a little bit to the concept of mystery in Western traditions. Our mindfulness practice starts to support us and train us in really being with uncertainty, navigating the unknown. We live in this rapidly changing world, rapidly changing universe, and there can be a tendency to really want to fix or create a solid state so that we understand something, it's permanent, it's fixed, it's predictable, it's efficient. And when we start to fix or create these kind of patterned default mode ways of knowing or being, we actually start to miss out on a lot of the brilliance of the world, a lot of the magic, a lot of the unknown, a lot of the other ways of seeing and knowing. And it can become a bit limiting, actually, the ways that we cognitively understand things. And so mindfulness really allows us to train and to relax in the ambiguity, to train and to relax in the unknown, beyond what we've known previously. So the word prajna is Sanskrit, and this often refers to wisdom and insight. It has to do with our understanding, our basic intelligence and knowing. It really can refer also to just direct insight into the truth of something or something's basic nature, the essence of something. Pra refers to best, highest and truest, and jna refers to knowledge or wisdom. So this is often the best, highest, truest form of knowledge and wisdom. Prajna. Prajna. Best way to know. It has to do with our capacity to really understand at the deepest levels of experience, the deepest levels of quality and understanding the basic nature of something. This exists in human beings as an inherent capacity that we develop, and it's often developed through what we call the three prajnas. The three prajnas refer to hearing, contemplating, and meditating. Hearing, contemplating, and meditating. So what are these things? What is this that we're referring to? Might be like a natural bubbling up of our own curiosity, our own doubt, our own inquisitiveness. I often say to my students, like, don't take my word for it. It's good to have some doubt, some skepticism, and so that we can grapple with and make sense of something on our own internally. What resonates? What doesn't? What questions do I have? Right? So doubt is part of this process, actually, a very important part. Some of the traditional Buddhist symbols that refer to prajna, you might have read a little bit in your reading. Prajna can be referred to as like a two-bladed sword. It cuts through the confusion about both the subject matter and about the learner. Two-sided, double-bladed sword, cutting through confusion, cutting through to clarity. This is often considered the sword held by Manjushri. I often like to think of it as like clarity and cutting wisdom, clear wisdom. We want to have a clear sword that can slice to the heart of the matter, but with a clean blade, with a blade that's so clean that we don't feel it's cut. It's so direct and so clean, so all-knowing. It's often referred to as wisdom. So how do we make sense of this in terms of our contemplative learning methodology? What does this actually mean in terms of practicality? How might you use it? What does it look like as a student, as a new student to Naropa University? How are we starting to know and understand? How is it different than traditional education? What makes it stand out? So the first prajna is hearing. This is where we start to take in information, start to absorb it. We also might consider it, the metaphor of digestion is often used. This is where we're tasting the food. We're just tasting it. Our skills here are beginner's mind. So how do we approach something fresh and new? First thought, best thought. It's often what Suzuki Roshi would say. How do we come at it fresh, especially when we have years and years of experience? So many of you have years and years of practice experience, years and years of even coaching experience or other ways of knowing the world. And so how do we let go of all the ways that we know and come at something fresh or new? Approach it with new eyes. Think of my toddler with toddler eyes, who sees the world, who sees the detail, who knows and remembers and senses with one's full body or full being. This often means not getting fully carried away by excitement, enthusiasm. And it means staying present until the message is fully received. Sticking with something. Continue to come back when we get distracted. Continue to try to know or hear, sense, till the message is delivered. It also, similar to the toddler, it refers to experiencing all of the sensory learning environment, the details of the learning environment, details around and within. Sensory, our senses. What are we seeing? What are we smelling? What are we tasting? What are we feeling somatically, internally? What are we thinking? What are we knowing? So this is just the beginning taste, the beginning taking in. What do I notice as I'm taking all of this in? The next prajna is referred to as contemplating. So this is where we start to chew. We carry on our digestion metaphor, our eating metaphor, we start to chew. We're really starting to use our conceptual mind accurately. We start to examine and we start to investigate. We dialogue, we talk to people. We analyze. We might even critique based on other parts of our history or our knowledge. We start to chew it over. We test. Does this measure up to what I've known previously? How does this differ? Does this feel similar to what I've known in my own lived experience or heard experience of the world? The skills here that are required are asking questions with courage. But how might this relate to this? But I thought I heard you say this earlier, or I read this in our other reading. We start to examine it from every angle. But how does this theory actually support this population? How does this work with marginalized people? We're not working at Naropa with many of these very privileged people. How does this work in this context? Start to ask the hard questions and examine things from all sorts of different angles and perspectives. Part of this is also remembering the details of our learning environment. When that person said that, I felt a little bit of this. I noticed a little bit of this. What do I remember? What do I know internally? What does my body remember? Or know that's beyond my mind or my thoughts about it? How do I sense or feel? What was left behind? What still lives within me? The third prajna is referred to as meditating. So this really refers to going beyond concept. So beyond our thoughts, beyond our bright ideas. Could almost say getting out of our own way. It's starting to discover a certain sense of truth beyond words and ideas. It often refers to digesting, integrating, swallowing, bringing the nutrients into our nervous system. The skills here that are really important is to really recognize your thinking is thinking. Oh, there I am thinking again. And really bringing our attention back to the present moment. There's my mind doing my thing that my mind does. And when we say back to the present moment, it's actually to what is unexpressible. What is beyond words about this experience, or impossible to put into words, or we try to put into words and then it changes. What's inexpressible, or maybe even unknowable cognitively. It has to do with resting with the question. So allowing ourselves not to know, being open and being curious. Well, what if? What might that look like? Oh, how interesting. It's very different than something I've understood before. So resting with the question. It also has to do with relaxing in the midst of ambiguity, which can be very anxiety provoking. To not know this very vulnerable state. To allow ourselves to be in the uncertainty of the process, to let yourself be a learner as a learner. You don't have to know yet. You don't know till you know. And to allow yourself to be in a process of figuring it out. So many of the students I've worked with want to know it all. I want to know how to do it now. It's very vulnerable to say, I don't know, and I'm figuring it out. I don't know if I'm going to be a good therapist. I don't know what those qualities mean. I don't even, I don't know anything about this just yet. And to really rest there is very, very uncomfortable. And there's a lot of possibility when we can just, one of my supervisors said once, wait until the fruit ripens. You can't pick the fruit before it's ripe. So just let yourself be a ripening piece of fruit and to rest there. So as we relax amidst the ambiguity, it also can be a spontaneous utterance, like an aha. And it's an utterance of the embodied moment that's beyond concept. Embodied utterance. Spontaneous embodied utterance. This is where our contemplative practices come in. Sitting, walking, lying down, moving, yoga. Also can be like being alone in nature. Also can be like dreaming. Let me think about this. Let me dream about it. Let me not know and rest and see what happens in the morning when I just take a night to sense or wake up with maybe a new way of sensing or being or a new way of understanding something. It's like allowing yourself to not have to know it all right away. To be like with learning as a unfolding, embodied, live process rather than a structured, like, rote, memorize fact, regurgitate fact, take a test, cram for test, forget all the test information. That's what my school was like. Remember everything, memorize everything, forget everything, do good on a test. This is very different than that. It's really starting to sort through what makes sense about this, what doesn't, what do I feel, what do I know, what do I not know. There's a quote here by Zenju Earthland Manual from The Way of Tenderness. When I really turn towards the hurt in silence, I enter a kind of tenderness. It's not sore, not wounded, but powerfully present. I sunk deep into the soft ground where the source of life was revealed. Wordless, nameless, without form. Completely and indescribably. It's really a path of tenderness, allowing yourself to be open to, I keep saying it as like the vulnerability of learning, but it also could be said the way of tenderness is experiential, it's non-intellectual, it's heartfelt acknowledgement of all embodied difference. It's a flexibility of perception rather than settling into a specific belief. It's a flexibility of perception. Allowing ourselves to be wrong, to get it wrong, and to be refreshed by something new. Understand something anew that we haven't known before. New way of knowing. Sharma from the Presencing Institute talks about theory U. It's related to sensing. Another way of describing this, sensing, presencing, and realizing. So really sensing, suspending our judgments, viewing it from all perspectives. Presencing might be a letting go and letting it come. It's kind of dynamic way. Presence, what's here, what's going, what's being received. And then realizing, really following the flow of multiple rapid conclusions. unfolding naturally over time. Really allowing us, it's okay, I don't know. Bernie Glassman Roshi talks about the Zen peacemaker's tenets, referring to not knowing, bearing witness, and then right action. So how do we sense, how do we know, how do we come to understand, how do we allow? If it's not cram, study, do a test, forget, what might it be? To rest and to know and to allow the learning to be experiential, embodied, understood from within, felt through, chewed on, navigated, spit out, fully tasted and savored. What might this look like for you in your own life, in your own lived experience? I am very excited that you're going to have an opportunity to find out, and that you've chosen this this path, this education, this new way. I think many of us are hungry for a new way. We understand the flaws of the old way. And the pain of the old way, and the meat machine that can be education. And if it's not that, if Naropa is not to be that, what is it to be? And how might you change? How might you transform? How might you come to know in a new way? And to really allow that unfolding and that process, that be a process. Thank you for your time today. I'm gonna close here with a bow. Taking a moment to bow to yourself and one another if you wish.